All right, let's get our act together for the July, whatever day it is, 16th meeting. We are missing Chris Korchak, Tom Brown, and Mo Bellevaux. The remainder of the 5 of us are here. Great, good job. Has everyone had a chance to review the June 18th meeting minutes?
Yes. Yes.
Any complaints or additions?
Or compliments.
I'll take compliments.
Very well taken.
Thanks.
If no one has anything, I make a move to approve them.
Second.
Huzzah, any further, yeah?
No, I
Okay.
agree.
Okay.
Ready for the vote. I was just waiting for the vote.
Any further discussion of that?
No.
Seeing none, holler aye if you approve of the June 18th, 2019 meeting minutes.
Aye, aye, aye.
Yay! Any nays?
Nope.
Any abstentions? Great, moving on. Anyone here to speak publicly? Empty seats. All right, so it's a requirement by the city charter that in the event that someone has missed 3 or more consecutive meetings, that you give them at least 10 business days notice. Business days? Didn't read that part, can't affirm that. At least 10 days notice before the meeting at which you will vote to vacate their seat by certified mail that you are about to do that. So I did that for Sarah Morgan. I have gotten the read receipt back from her. She's read the letter, she knows. So this is our formal way of saying that we are gonna vote to vacate Sarah Morgan's seat so we can post it as a vacancy. So, could someone move to do that?
I move that we vacate Sarah Morgan's seat so we can post it as a vacancy.
Second.
Okay, any further discussion? All in favor, holler aye.
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 Any nays? Any abstentions? Great. So I will write to the mayor's office after this and confirm that they can post it as a vacancy.
On my notes here, vacation successful.
Okay. Jeff, welcome. Would you like to share things that are on your mind or things that you know that we will love to hear about?
I have one in particular
Great.
that I'd like to talk about real quick, and then I'd like to just put a quick plug in for the downtown planning grant workshops.
Okay.
I think I'll try to be quick, yeah. So what is happening currently is a discussion about the city, the planning department with the support of the mayor's office to submit a MassWorks application in association with River Valley Market. The reason why I'm bringing it up now is that the deadline for MassWorks applications is August 9th, which will be before your next meeting. So I just wanted to talk through the idea of this group writing a letter of support to accompany that kind of application.
Can you give us details on?
Yeah, so the project has gained planning board special permit approval and has the Conservation Commission approval. So the way that it was structured was that the planning board approved the project without the need for a turning lane on Route 10, but acknowledged that the applicant had continuously been discussing that need, the desire to have a turning lane on Route 10. So the planning board approved it without the turning lane, but in its decision supported that idea if it were to come to fruition. And then there is a realignment of Lyman Street, which partially includes a new driveway to Valley Medical, and it's not at a perfect 90 degrees now, it's at a broader angle, which makes it a challenge for vehicular movement. So the idea would be to make it a 90-degree angle. So there's discussion there that the River Valley Market would give a portion of the property to the city to allow that realignment, and then the turning lane would bring Route 10 closer to River Valley Market. So they would be giving whatever land would be necessary to accommodate the turning lane. The problem is that their pro forma doesn't cover those costs. So in order to make that happen, beginning with the mayor's office, she's desiring to show partnership and willingness to have the city apply for the MassWorks funding. in terms of scale, it's much smaller than the size of the grant request or the size of the project associated with North Ferry Street. But in this case, you know, the value added for Easthampton really starts to hinge on that if the project comes forward, it will result in 70 full-time jobs. So job creation is a goal of MassWorks. Job creation in the city is great. So there's tax revenue that gets generated, and then there's just a real demonstration of economic growth to kind of move that project forward. So I think the EDIC, if not for the other MassWorks grant, the EDIC has written letters of support for our various grant activities. And I did draft up like an outline of what the letter would consist of, because I think at the end of the day, I'd probably be seeking the chair's signature on the final letter. But I wanted to try to put something together which would kind of show like what we're saying, what we're asking the EDIC.
Mm-hmm.
I see no problem with this.
Can I add a sentence or two to feel like I did some work?
Yep, yep, and I just wanted to give, you know, the full committee the idea, because I think there would probably need to be some text changes, but that would be the gist
Yes.
of the
Great.
letter, so that you guys could see what it would look like.
By all means.
Okay.
Yeah.
Alright.
Mhm.
We don't know the dollar amount of what we're thinking, but the estimates that River Valley has produced is a conservative all-in was around 450,000 for the roadway improvements, with some possibility to whittle it down a little bit, because we have this sense that a MassWorks grant application of $350-ish thousand would be potentially in like their wheelhouse, and so it's a small enough ask. You know, it's under $500,000, and that we've seen, you know, looking back at the awards, that there's a bunch of smaller MassWorks grants that gets funded, and then there's the big ticket, you know, there's big grants. So, and in full disclosure, because it could come up at a later meeting, you know, we're talking about a fallback position, which would be to explore, so this is not part of the request, this is just information, but to explore the possibility of a DIF, so the district improvement financing tool. If for some reason MassWorks were to not be granted, we want to at least explore the possibility of using a DIF, so that's whatever the value of the auto dealership is now versus the value of a fully redeveloped market. There's tax revenue to be gained, and some of that could be used to pay for the road improvement, but we'd rather pursue the MassWorks first.
Oh,
because
sure.
it's fully grant funded, so.
And it's not hinged on them getting this money.
Well, there is a discussion piece that they do not have the ability
The
to
last.
pay for this.
The last.
But if this did not come through, would that stop the market?
It's unclear. And I mean, that's part of what MassWorks wants, is to be that funding source that unlocks, you know, a problem. And
Good,
so
okay.
there's that element. And I think what we're trying to do is explore other options to make sure that there's a fallback position
What's
in
that-
terms of what the city can do.
What's that timeline? I know you mentioned August 9th, but like when do they usually respond to these things?
So the pattern from last year was we submitted, it was either August 9th or August 10th last year, and the award was announced in November,
Oh.
the beginning of November. So that's kind of the timeline that we're envisioning.
That sounds reasonable.
Yeah, that sounds like it gives enough of time to figure the sources out, or.
Exactly, to
just
prepare, just in case.
Find out that, you know, raise more money.
Yep, all right.
Great.
Okay, so I don't know if that's a vote to authorize the chair to sign such a letter. I
I
don't
think
know.
that's well within our purview, I don't think we have to.
Yeah.
Okay.
What else?
So then the downtown planning grant, so we've had 2 sessions so far, and I forget,
That was the turnout.
the turnout has been very good. So the minutes from last time, the first session was the next day. So the first session we had in Pepin, and we had 120 people packed in the cafeteria at Pepin, and the consultant kind of admitted after the fact that they were planning for like 60-ish people. So they were happy, they were impressed with the turnout, they were congratulating us on the people who were there and the people who were participating, so it was very good.
Well, it seems to me though, if the consultant was that surprised that they need a little bit of help, because that doesn't surprise me at the moment, that we have 120 people. I mean,
Well, this
I
may
know,
have been the nudge that they needed.
yeah, I mean, I know how things
Yeah.
go in general, especially on a Saturday, but the vibe right now for this in town is high, you know, it's just.
Yep, and then we did the typical, which is for the second meeting, so that, the first meeting was on a Wednesday night,
Yeah.
the second meeting was recently, that was last Saturday, it was the other day,
Yeah.
just on Saturday. So Saturday morning in July,
Beautiful day.
yes, a beautiful day, still garnered 55 people.
Right.
And that was, so that's actually a really good turnout for any kind of planning meeting,
Yeah.
let alone on Saturday, so.
They were both really intergenerational, which was very exciting to
good.
see.
Yeah.
And Paul and I were at the same table for the first one, and at the end of it, I was like, are we crazy people? What are we gonna see on other people's tables? And there were some extraordinarily interesting common themes across all these
Yeah.
different groups that had completely different makeups. That part was great.
Yeah.
Was there much negativity?
I didn't,
No.
so, and. I
And
didn't
activities
expect-
aren't structured that way.
Right,
Yeah. And that would have come out before the vote.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's all about like positive and ideas and, you know, maybe pinch points or problem points, but not like in a negative way.
you don't
More-
get to sit and dwell.
Yeah.
That's cool.
and so the first session was largely around the potential types of uses that could be put in the schools, and an ability to kind of rank them a little bit, and then set up some criteria moving forward as to how to evaluate that. And then the session on Saturday was really sort of 3 development scenarios for various parts of the study area. So we did the schools, and then we looked at the lower Main Street area. So if you think Family Dollar, that triangle there, there's a triangle.
Union Street area.
Yep, there's a triangle on Cottage Street, where the Brass Cat starts and goes up Maple and loops around to Chapel. And then around Main Street, there were some scenarios, and everyone was kind of talking about them, their strengths, you know, the land uses. And so the consultant is going to kind of lay out the very modest changes, if you simply reuse the schools and make very minor changes, all the way to explore sort of a 10-year vision out for more substantial changes and what that might look like. And then the final session is October 9th, and that'll be really the culmination of putting these pieces of the puzzle together. And then a written document should be coming sort of November-ish, November, December is our target for an actual plan. So it's been a very process so far.
That's cool, that's good.
Yeah. I've seen a lot of bicycles on the bike path, the rental bikes that
Yes.
have the assist. I ask people as I'm zooming by them, are you happy? And they are.
That's good.
Universally, they're like, it's so cool. I can go faster now. It's great.
Good.
Yeah, very exciting. Also very intergenerational. The first people I saw, high school boys. Really? Okay. And now, older people
Great.
who are like, it's Wednesday afternoon, let's go for a ride. It's great.
One of the next steps on that is I'm trying to organize a 1 or 2 more demo days.
Mm-hmm.
So to just bring it down to a little bit more scale, so what I've been trying to think is at the farmer's market. So the farmer's market has a pretty good sort of local turnout, and so I'm trying to arrange for a Saturday for them to have the bikes available for people to try them out. I think that there are a lot of people using them, but I think there's a lot of people who haven't gotten on one.
Mm-hmm.
And that's that unknown, and I want to try to break the unknown and get people on them. And then related to that, and I think this is where you guys would come in, I want to try to find a day during the week to get town hall employees, and like we have a good board and committee list, and get board and committee members to potentially, you know, have a day where they could come by and try one in the 50 Payson parking lot. Just because I think that there's a real opportunity for people who are involved in the city to, you know,
Experience them.
experience them and try them and be not afraid.
Yeah. There are the 2 docking locations, right?
There's 4.
There's 4, where, okay, there's the one here, there's
One here.
over on the rail trail.
Yep, so there's one on the rail trail, by
yes.
Tandem, Family Dollar, yep.
Okay.
Then up at Old Town Hall,
Oh, that's one there too, okay, good.
yep, and then the last one is on the, next to Millside Park,
Great.
on the rail trail.
Interesting enough, twice I've noticed Old Town Hall empty of their bikes. I know they replenish them,
Yeah,
but it was just thought that there must be a starting point, because they didn't come back,
yes,
you know, but you know, I just noticed it twice.
Well, theoretically, they can drop it off at a different location.
Well, right, and that's, you know, and I know, and then they, you know, during the week, they have a, you know, for all their bikes, you know, Hoyoke, and
Yeah.
they replenish, you know, obviously, some site might have more bikes than they can hold,
yeah,
but, no, just to give you a heads up, I'm not advocating this, but, you know, in addition to scooters, there are now mini segways, and there's even, electric, I don't wanna call it a skateboard, but it's like a skateboard with a ball in the middle.
I've seen
Oh,
that.
yeah.
And then there's even now, electric, I'm gonna call it a skate, but basically it's a ball that you stand on.
Yeah.
And so, down the road, you might be seeing,
Yeah,
No, when I was in Paris, I was amazed at all the different little vehicles that people
Yeah.
would like buzzing by on. I was like, what is that thing?
Wow.
Yeah.
Is it a bike?
right.
yeah,
The eternal question.
I think it's gonna come up, I think, as a result of the Pedal Tavern, I think it's striking a conversation. I think if you take the biggest rolling mechanism and you start to whittle it down,
Yeah.
so a couple
Speed.
towns, yeah, Northampton and Amherst in particular have started a conversation about like how to deal with scooters. And then I think it should incorporate the smaller, so
Yeah,
like
yeah.
scooters, you know, and all those other sort
Right.
of modes of transportation.
Yeah.
I think we should be starting to talk about it now.
And what's-
Getting those things out of the road in traffic, it gets very dangerous.
well, and what's happened in Nashville, because, you know, they had a scooter death in the spring, and of course, a YouTube star died on a scooter, this week.
Oh.
What happened?
A YouTube star, a person that's famous on YouTube was riding a scooter, a woman, and she got hit by a truck.
Oh.
But,
She's wearing a
So-
helmet.
what's that?
She's wearing a helmet.
I have no idea. The other person, he hit an SUV, but he was drunk. But it doesn't matter, it's flush against steel. But the reason I mentioned though is the conversation in Nashville went from like banning them to now all of a sudden there's 3 scooter companies of all of a sudden are self-regulating. They actually pulled some scooters off.
Yeah.
A couple locations went away, because the scooters are not going away, but with a fear of banning, all of a sudden self-regulation came in, you know, some common sense.
Smart.
Yeah.
You know, but, you know, you'll have to have what you just mentioned is good, so you can be less reactive, you know.
Right,
more-
we wanna be a little more proactive.
Yeah.
It's 2 sides to the coin, so there's the concept that's called micro-mobility, where you're looking at all these, there's like 5 or 6 ways that people can get around that eliminate a car trip. And so, we're a small city, so we should begin to talk about it, but other communities are talking about like pairing, so we already have the bike stations. Like, in the future, could there be a scooter station next to it? And at least trying to kind of begin to flesh out where would we wanna have these alternate modes of transportation. And it's really focused on the bike path. I mean, I think
Sure.
once you go anything smaller than and it's hard on the bike, like I don't like riding my bike up Union Street.
No.
No.
So, you know, to find these alternate ways to get to a destination.
Yeah.
But then the bike path is kind of our central artery where
No,
some
but
stuff will work.
it's
but-
good, because someday you'll have a bike lane to the park,
Yeah.
and someday from the park to the schools
Right.
will be a trail of some
Yeah.
sort. So
That's the idea.
you'll have all that stuff in place.
Yes, I mean, if you envision the rail trail runs entirely through our city, and if we can get spurs off of it,
Right,
we'll
so-
accomplish a lot.
Before Union Street, there'd be a cutoff to the back roads that take you up by Chapman and
Yes.
all those, and same
Yeah.
thing, it's like
Yeah.
instead of, before you get to Union versus
Yeah.
Williston, there's some turnoff that gets you up to Park Street or
Yeah.
something like that, so you avoid and then you can take those wider streets
Yeah.
that are.
Exactly. Yep,
Cool, man.
great.
Last time, yes.
Oh, just the Futures Arts, the ECA, is,
Oh, yeah.
when are we getting that sort of tied up? Is there one more meeting, or?
There is one more meeting, let me check so I can say it correctly. That's gonna be dubbed sort of a celebration and a way to showcase the findings, yeah,
Contributions to the master plan.
yep.
Cool.
It's either September 21st or September 22nd. It's either Saturday or Sunday. I apologize that I don't actually know. A meeting and an event to talk about the key findings, some of the goals and strategies coming out of this, and then, you know, where we leave off is taking all that documentation and figuring out the way to kind of bring it for adoption as a chapter of our master plan. And so I've had discussions with the arts coordinator that this project became available and it's super rich with information, and so as of October we'll have the information we need, and then it'll probably be in the spring. I'd like to pair it with another project or two to bring a chapter or two through the city council process for adoption, so I'm
And
exploring
would
how
this
this can work.
kind of help decide the direction of ECA?
Yes, I think what Pascalina has said is that there'll be really broad issues and goals that come out of this, and then from that, I think the idea is to make like a 5-year strategic plan for ECA, because I think there's gonna be a lot of projects.
One of the things, Josh, is they had something from 10 years ago, and they really sort of got a good 85% of it done. You know, so they will look back and say, all right, let's create another series, but, you know, and then also sort of refocus on, well, why did we get those things done, are they important? And like the kids' education curriculum was a big thing about having that on there. Sort of just reminding them like what they thought was important, why they thought it was important,
Good.
so.
Okay.
Yeah. I think one of the other things that it may not be the top priority, but what's there is to put some numbers to arts. So like to help articulate how valuable arts has been in Easthampton. So there's a concept of sort of doing an inventory of our creative economy. So the small businesses that we have that are artist-based or art-based, and show how that has had like an economic impact, like positive economic impact on Easthampton, and use those numbers to keep kind of
Goes both
tracking
ways,
us
though.
forward.
Millside is great for the city, but it kills me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like it draws 3,000 people down to the mill, but they avoid my place.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Where
Yeah.
otherwise on regular Saturday nights we're busy.
Right,
You know, so it's like it's just a shell game. You know, it's not a bad shell game.
Right.
It just, you know what I mean?
is there a way, like though, that has it come up to make like to make a Main Street sort of series, or to give that sort of pull that energy around a little bit? Maybe that.
Yeah. I mean, it's just it's tough. I mean, Cobb Street's got such a draw.
Yeah.
You know, the mills have such a draw. So it's just, you know, time.
Yeah.
When the old
Seems
town hall
to
gets
come
done, it'll be set.
Yeah.
But you know what I mean? It's sort of like it's nice to be supportive and you know, embrace the strength that the arts dollars are.
Yeah.
But it's just it does sort of shift from other
That's
things.
totally fair. Yeah.
But you know what I mean? It's just
Yeah,
but all boats rise, you know, when we get that kind of energy and stuff. So it's a question of figuring out how to get on that wave.
right.
I mean, I sponsor I cook food for all the musicians that eventually will come around.
Well, I'm sure a lot of people recognize that.
Oh yeah, they do. That's the thing with my business. It's sometimes it's easy to directly see, you know, events and the paybacks, and other times it's not.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's like your parents coming and loving the place. You know what I mean? It's like, because I spent a lot of money to have a gazebo, but now they have the outdoor space. You know what I mean? So it's like I don't see that just because you told me. Otherwise, it's just sort of like rolling the dice. I know it's a good thing, but you know what I mean?
I think that's good. I think that's good information.
Yeah, it's really hard to know. It's pinpointed, but I can say that the Arts in the Orchard is a really good thing for us.
That helps everyone in town.
Yeah, exactly. You know, so it's just sort of, there's some that you say, like the Bearfits, you can say specifically, wow, that's a winner, but other ones it's sort of like, just like helps different pockets and,
Yeah.
you know.
It'd be interesting to see how you can get the numbers you're looking for because, sometimes when you see those numbers, on one hand, you're like, really? But then on the other hand, when you think about it, sometimes I think those numbers are low. I mean, I know it's hard to get at them, but I just, the impact is just has so many multipliers and it's
Yeah.
just so indirect in so many ways.
Yep.
It's just hard to get a handle on it.
Can I suggest we carry on?
Yes.
Certainly. Last time, we talked a little bit about accessory dwelling units, and since then, we'll get to this part about Worcester and yada yada. But I was hearkening back to multiple meetings ago when you came and you had in front of you piles of paper, and you were able to flip between pieces within this giant document about, here's where the zoning says this one thing about residential on the first floor. I'm just thinking about
Yeah.
housing. Can you remind me / us what is happening with thinking through streamlining zoning for that sort of question of like first floor residential, just in general?
I think that through the downtown strategic plan is where that will pop back up.
Okay.
I think it's not straightforward. I think there's two ways to view it. I think that in the downtown area where you have walkability, I think the general notion is that keeping the first floors active is preferred. And then I think where we started to shift was outside of the downtown, so in the highway business district, where that might, freeing that up over there makes more sense. So I think I just have not had enough time to double down on figuring out how that applies in the highway business district.
Some of that came up with the ECA's thing too, just as far as artists being able to have gallery space, living space, and, or that kind of thing. So I had to tell people, oh, the city is talking about it, and zoning changes are potentially going to happen if there's enough, interest in it and examples of where it can be successful. So there's other people thinking about it too. It's just like strategically, you don't want to give up
Yeah.
walkability, storefronts.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
The downtown will come up with some specific zoning tweaks for this area, for the downtown area, and then, so for the arts visioning, like loud and clear was affordability
Yeah.
of housing, just across the board, whether you're an artist or an elder. There should be this broad brush need for making more units and making them more attainable. And so I think the second bite of the apple will come if we get that housing grant. So I think, that would be where we really have an opportunity to
That
have.
study.
The study would be townwide and look at, I think we can pinpoint them to say, what would allowing first floor units do in the highway business? Like, is that a good opportunity for us to get a couple more units there? So I think all is not lost. I think it's just I just maybe had to reposition it a little bit.
Yeah. Okay. Do we have a sense of when we'll hear back about that? The housing needs assessment grant?
My estimate was gonna be September, or October.
To find out if we had the funding for it.
Correct, yes, and that's just the funding, and then we'd have to put out a request for proposal. So it'd really be like a late winter, early spring, if, we would be starting the project,
Cool.
but,
Great.
It sounds pretty good timing.
Yeah.
Mhm.
It seems like that has a key element to decisions or,
yeah, we want that, we really want that study and that funding, so.
So shall we move on?
Yes.
Other things that are burning? Okay. Redevelopment Authority, hot topic at last month's conversation. I wanna lead with what I think is slightly easier, which is letter B. Last meeting, we had a question, do we have bonding authority? What's the story with bonding authority? I admit I still don't really understand about bonding authority. However, I did scour the city's internet. And what I came up with is that in 2015, we abolished the Industrial Development Finance Authority, as the determination had been made that there was no need for its further existence, that they did not have any property left to administer, and that all of its outstanding obligations had been satisfied. So, if that is the same as bonding authority, we don't have it. And Barbara LeBombard's, she read through our minutes and got back to me that evening and said, I don't think that you ever had it. I don't know. Anyway, the point is, we either never had it or we currently don't. So,
The result is the same.
yes,
Yeah.
regardless, right now, no. So that's, that, whatever that is. Jeff and Mayor and Chris Korchak and Gwen went to Worcester yesterday to visit with their, what's his name, city manager, Ed Augustus.
Augustus, yeah, yeah,
Cool.
very good.
And members of his staff, and he walked us around some areas of Worcester's downtown immediately around City Hall and talked us through, I mean, all his staff were very conversational and talked with us about ways that they had achieved really lovely revitalization of the downtown area in many different open space and business oriented and housing related ways. And then we had lunch at their municipal golf course, which was on the top of a high hill, and it was very lovely, and yesterday was the right day for it.
Hmm.
Today would have been totally brutal and no thank you.
Can you explain, what was his position again?
Ed Augustus is the city manager, which is their full-time version of mayor, because their mayor is part-time. He's like a,
Okay.
I'll christen your boat.
Yeah, they're,
figurehead.
they have a weak mayoral form of government.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
The manager is a hired position by city council or
Yeah, I think so.
Didn't ask that.
and not elected official?
Not elected, I think it was appointed, yeah.
So, we had a lot of opportunities to talk about a lot of different kinds of things. Some of the, what stood out to me, you brought up a really great topic, the topic of the redevelopment authority. And if you hadn't, I would have, so good job with you. And we talked to them about how they've used it and why, and they've had one since, what did Mike say, since the 1950s. And he said that at this point, stop me when I get it wrong, he thinks of a redevelopment authority as capable of the same kinds of things that a city council is capable of, perhaps more nimbly. I did not press on what nimble means. I talked about it a little bit afterward with Tom Peake and Chris. Tom joined us as well. But the thinking is that, you remember that last time we read through that large document that mostly ended up being like procedures. But that one of the main functions of it is to think really deeply about having a plan, what would we want to do with these areas that are problematic for our city, and then identifying objectives for that plan and developing some kind of relationship with property owners or whatever so that you can move forward to do something useful with those sites, including up to the extreme of taking land. So we talked with him about that, and now I'm blanking. Did he say that they've only done it once, but it was through offering market value for like 7 properties to build the ballpark?
Taking, I think he said something along, recently, I think they've only used the taking opportunity once,
Yeah.
which was to assemble some parcels they have a giant baseball stadium.
For the
Did
Worcester
you have-
Red Sox.
Did you happen to ask him if he had experienced any situations where there was 1 or 2 very prominently placed buildings that were abandoned and eyesores like we're facing here? How they dealt with that?
I feel like they were basically saying that a lot of the features of the downtown area immediately near City Hall were like that, and that they were deeply problematic for the city, but they had reached like stagnation in figuring out what to do with them.
So they hadn't resolved it yet?
Well, they had a while ago, but I'm thinking of the mall in particular, and
Yeah.
it sits on the same street as City Hall.
It did come up real quick because I don't think we were shy in kind of explaining our scenario, which
Sure.
was kind of like threefold. It was a specific property on Union Street,
Yes.
a specific property on Main Street,
Yes.
and this idea of some elementary schools that, if there were 2 more parcels, you could have like maybe something more grand.
Mm-hmm.
I remember briefly, this was yesterday, he said something about a demonstration site, and he
Yes.
said there was some other mechanism that he thought, as an idea, there was some other mechanism that he thought could be good, to look at for sort of individualized cases. And then he dropped someone's name,
I wrote it
who,
down.
and Chris
Jen
did as
Mullen.
well, yep, like, there's a possibility to explore something. And then there was the idea of a little bit of more strong, a little more aggressive in talking about forming a redevelopment authority, and then having that as a push to kind of seek some action from a property owner, but that was a little bit more aggressive.
Right.
There's-
Casey, is that the Worcester booklet under your thing? I thought this was kind of a cool document that you guys could check out. I just think that this is a really neat way of sharing with the entire community what the plans are for Worcester. They have vision statements and goals and objectives and who's responsible, and it's lovely. But you asked, what's his face, Peter or somebody, what the plan was for communicating to the public progress or goals or whatever. What was his answer? I walked away.
Well, it didn't take very long, so there's just a dizzying amount of activity happening in downtown Worcester, and so I got to the point, I was like, so when do you say that this is like so much stuff happening? How do you keep track of it all? And, you know, they did talk that they have an internal meeting structure, and there's a bunch of organizations who come, you know, to a bi-weekly meeting, but that's their internal sort of organization, which we're not too far off from that. Question was externally for people who live in the area, like, to find out all the things that are happening, is like they have not figured it out yet. Like, they don't have like a website with all these kind of current projects going on, and so that, I saw that in a minute, that remains an important goal of mine. That was one thing that was a takeaway for me, is that we have a lot of stuff going on, but we don't have that much stuff going on. And, in the grand scheme of things, we've got a couple great kind of things moving, and it's manageable, but there could be much more.
Yeah.
But this,
But
They have
even
they
on
have a
that,
staff of like 39 people.
even on
but-
that scale, I don't think that there's parts of the city that are collaborating on things
True.
that would make sense. You
Yeah.
know, the chamber doesn't know what Laudable's doing down at the mills, and the mills
Here,
don't.
yeah.
The mills
Yeah.
don't know that, you know, the chamber would be a good resource, and all these different like
Yeah.
groups that if they sort of could share information, kind of like us with the housing authority, like we're talking about different housing things, but if we simply were reading the housing authority minutes, you know, it's really difficult to
Yeah.
take time and
But-
have someone filter this stuff.
you know, what's interesting about Worcester though is, you know, about 15 years ago, Ellen Coteen and Jill Lewis, and I think Denise Riggs, I think she went as well. We went to Worcester for a meeting, and as far as they are now, they were that far away about 15, because that's when they were starting to have meetings about collaboration with the universities. That mall was beginning to that mall that was downtown was beginning to show its cracks,
Mhm.
and they knew. So, you know, in 15 years they've come a long way.
Yeah.
You know, the only other thing I'll say is, like, as far as the baseball stadium, you know, the Pawtucket Red Sox are leaving, but there's no way that baseball team would move to another city without some form of city assistance.
Right.
Because between the parcels, probably some financing, but, you know, Springfield tried it a few times, but they didn't have all the pieces.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think those are good conversation pieces for the group, and I think that was part of the purpose of the trip, is just to understand that my takeaway was, like, a really good project, you need like 8 years. You know, like that. So we walked around the theater district, and we went into this building that had been acquired fairly recently, and they had like just finished the drywall, and it was going to be this pop-up artist space, and in the back was going to be this paint box theater, you know, capable of, you know, holding like 100 people, and then they showed us this alley that was right next door, totally just an alley, but it was going to be like an outdoor theater space. And then the financial guy there was like, and we had Brownfield tax credits, we had Newmarket tax credits, we had 2 MassWorks grants, we had this, and then this project started in 2011.
Yeah.
So like, that was really a takeaway for me, is, you know, I'm kind of at the beginning of One Ferry Street, trying to really hard make that project like happen. but it's been in the works for years. And so like in Old Town Hall, I kept mentioning all these projects, Old Town Hall, you know, if you look back, it's probably been 6 years.
Yeah.
You know, so Worcester has this whole thing where like, oh, they're in this renaissance, but there's so many things that are all going on to get to that point when a project happens, and there's a lot of similarity here.
It took me a year and a half to open a 3,000 square foot restaurant.
Exactly, right. So it's easy for someone
And
to
we
come
were
in and be like,
busy all
oh,
the time,
you know,
you know.
Easthampton's up
Yeah.
and coming, but the reality is that there's a lot of strategy, like the boardwalk has been really important to us. But that, you know, that, before it got built, it was like at least 2 or 3 years in concept and design and making that happen, so that to me was really helpful, just to continue to realize that great projects take a lot of time to make happen.
I was really interested in the fact that they have this structure for multiple municipal level groups and commercial groups to come together and talk every week or every other week. Like they just sit in a room together, and representatives from the chamber and from the economic council and the something and the other thing and that
Well,
guy.
that's why I wanted to bring Mo to this and
Mhm.
Mo to the to the
Yeah.
ECA too, just because a little bit of
Yeah.
glue to find out all
Yeah.
these positive things that are
Mhm.
happening that really have sort of been the backbone of the Renaissance, and be sort of like, all right, can we get
Yeah.
someone to be in the room
Yeah,
in multiple meetings to,
Yeah.
there's strength in those loose ties, and it
Yeah.
seems like there are things that we could do to just de facto, not even through any kind of policy, just say, all right, there's gonna be this thing, somebody should show up.
Yeah.
It'll be on Saturday, once a month, or something, I have no idea.
Right.
It was an interesting and a poignant point, because they kept referring to how frequently they talked with people from different areas of the city to make things collaborative.
So can you comment on, like, was there any takeaway as far as like how they are using their development authority? Like, it sounds like they're doing a lot of different things, but obviously they're a much bigger city, and how the way they have organized this process to help them improve, if that would be applicable to what we're looking to accomplish here.
I think they said things that we already knew, like it's important to have a plan, you need to have specific sites, you need to have objectives in place. And are they using it for the ballpark, or did they not need to go that? I think they are.
Yeah, I think that they are, I think the way that you expressed it was that the existence of the redevelopment authority had an influence on trying to obtain 7 properties, like 4 of them just came willing to the table, and then the last 3 were gonna be a discussion of taking at fair market value. I do remember him saying something about, and then correct me if you even heard it, but I thought he said there was no longer funding associated with like creating a redevelopment authority, that it was really just that mechanism to
Right, it's
move.
essentially just a group of people who come up with a plan and they gotta figure out how to fund the plan.
Yeah, so there was I did get a sense of a takeaway that if it's something where it's these individual parcels, or even just one of, around like an elementary school, and if it's not a really gigantic project or a huge area, that I did get the sense that like working with your, you know, proactive city council might be a little bit easier,
Mhm.
rather than forming this whole.
it did seem like, I mean, like you said, everything takes time. And
Yeah.
the way that we first looked at it was sort of like, wow, this will take years to come to fruition.
Right. So one of the merits of it is that for a city council, they have the whole rest of the city they've gotta think about, like they've
Yeah.
got their stuff.
Right,
Yeah.
But what they can do is address solutions that have been proposed by existing committees, and think more deeply when presented, not with a blank page, but with a page that has some starting points or a complete plan. Okay,
Right.
revise, resubmit.
right.
So if we were thinking, like, let's imagine there is no way out of the existing structure, then EDIC could be a very useful thought partner workhorse to get some ideas and relationships built, and then offer that to city council and say, here,
Yeah.
look what you can say yes to. Rather than them having to do the work themselves.
No,
So
I-
it's stewardship, basically.
Yeah.
I think that's a good idea. I think though, it's gonna take a little bit of a paradigm shift for city council, which I think is happening organically.
Mhm.
Some of the new members do wanna revisit, I don't know, revisit, they do wanna maybe adjust the role of city council and city affairs. Is where before, there was traditional subcommittees, it's kind of like reactive. The property subcommittee could be, I'm not being critical, but it could be a little bit more forward-thinking than it has been. Even when it's on inventory of land, so that'd be interesting if, I don't mind what you just said, EDIC becoming an advocate, that the city council has to, be receptive to.
Sure.
I think it's coming. I see a change in some of the, how they view their roles.
Okay.
Good.
I'll throw out one more quick thing. So,
Please.
I think that there's still an opportunity through the downtown planning initiative as an output, because there's goals and then there's the strategies. And so I think we still have a potential opportunity to ask the consultant to just gauge something for us. So I think in somewhere in the scope is the concept of a school reuse committee to carry some of this on forward, especially as we get closer to the end of the process. And maybe the question is for them to just do some kind of at least general summary or overview of school reuse committee versus like a redevelopment authority. Like, because they have a lot more expertise in kind of how they've seen it exercised in other communities. Maybe they could articulate that school reuse committee with city council would be totally sufficient to kind of implement these broad goals around the schools, or maybe like the redevelopment authority could be X, Y, and Z, and at least it would give us one more place to continue the discussion. Because I think the two properties that have been mentioned before on Union Street and Main Street, I think that they're very specific and they're kind of singular. So there might be other tools. And I think one of them, I think it's a matter of time for something to happen. I don't know about the one on Main Street, but whether the redevelopment authority is like the best tool to initiate those. But
Well, I think that is a genius stroke, and maybe you could request that.
yes, I think I would like to,
something
yeah.
recommend for us.
Okay.
Okay, last time, as we were racing out the door, these two topics, 7 and 8, came up. Taxation for nonprofits in the city, and Brewster Court near Williston. Thoughts?
Number 8's a moot point.
We don't need to talk about it anymore?
Oh, we can, but last Wednesday there was a vote by the city council.
Okay,
And there was an affirmative vote to exchange with Williston, Brewster Court for some land adjacent to Whitebrook Middle School.
right.
Where is Brewster Court?
It goes Main to Park.
Just past the chapel as you're going towards Whitebrook.
Before the.
Oh, it goes up from
Yeah.
there up to Route 10?
Yeah, is
Yeah.
it one way?
No,
Yes, it is.
no,
It's one way,
it is.
coming from Route
Oh,
10.
One way down.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So now that's gonna be part of the city?
No,
No,
That's
Park.
gonna be part of Williston?
right,
Yeah.
it's currently part of the city.
So will it be private property then?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. They have to work out some utility easements, but basically it's an exchange of land for land.
So they'll probably restrict some traffic on there.
Well, it's gonna be closed off.
That's pretty restrictive.
There's no real reason to go on it.
I use it
Well, you have to go to Greenwood.
to avoid traffic.
Yeah.
But that's fine.
It is a cut through in the morning.
Yeah.
Yeah. No more.
Does that render number 7 moot as well?
Well,
I can't remember who recommended this, I should have
That
written
was-
it down. Was it you, Casey?
Yeah.
Do you have
Just,
thoughts?
well, it was this here that Tom Brown said that one of the two churches on my street is actually paying taxes because it's not in use as a church. So that was, and I didn't know that. So if it was just sitting dormant, not paying taxes, I'd have been,
Sure.
wanted to follow that. But since they are paying taxes, it's. I think that it's, as we want to talk about housing and affordability and people's tax rates going up, is there other sources of revenue before we start, hitting the elderly and the poor with the tax bills? Is that, Wilson's pretty fat cat, he would know more about, he's
There's a
got
really
history with
big
this.
church on Pleasant Street now. It's city empty.
well, no, it's not empty. See,
It's
you know,
storing.
It's storing.
Right, and that's what I'm
It's not
getting at.
being
Like,
used necessarily for religious purposes.
well, no, it's storing actually church artifacts of the diocese. I mean, the diocese is basically Western Mass wide, So that's how they're able to come under the religious exemption. But, you know, so that's all well and good, I mean, they're following the letter of the law and it works for them. But if you contrast that to like Riverside Industries is a nonprofit, however, they pay property taxes because they have rental units in there. And I am of the belief that they don't need to, but they have been for 15 years and they have no intention to stop. You know, but you know, at some point in time, whenever you have this, it'd be nice if the level of conversation, if the conversation could reach the next level. We all have like anecdotes and gripes, but it doesn't go anywhere. But you know, Williston is a net positive to the city. I'm a graduate of Williston. But my attitude about Williston is every child that goes there will get an education, but not every child in Easthampton necessarily will get an education. And it's our job as a community to do that.
Yeah.
So we need, you know, we don't need to gouge, we don't need to grab, but we need to have healthier discussions on contributions.
Right, and part of it is the lack of education on my part, to
Yeah.
know, like, well, what do they contribute to?
Right.
You know, just when I see them take another house off the tax structure into a nonprofit, I sort of like, wow, that's a couple of grand.
Well,
City
interesting enough,
loses
even with Brewster Ave, when I graduated in '81, the practice at that time was if a house was purchased, that they would continue paying the property taxes. That was the practice. It ended at some point in time.
No, I'd like to see that come back.
Yeah.
You know, just so it gives, you know, when we talk about the lack of housing, it's like, well, how many are they taking up?
Yeah.
You know,
It
but
came
yet,
up at the conversation we had in Worcester yesterday because they have 9 colleges there that they have positive relationships with, but those are non-negligible, not taxed institutions that serve as a pipeline for a lot of the employers in the area, but still, so they talked, my eyes started to like roll back in my head, it was like, it's too much. But at one point, I think, what they said was they have conversations, like they're maintaining those relationships all the time, and there's a give and get approach to this, so that they are saying, all right, if you wanna take this amount of land, then we're gonna need you to maintain this tax level. Like maybe it's never gonna go up, but we need at least this to rely on.
Right. And I think they likened that to like any future expansions.
Yep.
I think that's where that policy maybe at the next level up
Yeah.
at the mayor's office, to just understand that that was a policy, and maybe that's a policy to have back on the table for any future expansions.
Yeah.
I think the Brewster Park Street, it was an exchange, so there was something gained by the city.
Win-win.
Yeah, it was
Yeah,
a win-win,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
So, but if it were, so that someone asked me about the disposition of that, really, the historic house at the top of Payson Ave, the blue one with the cupola and everything, and I don't know who bought it, but, you know, there should be a conversation about a policy for any future expansions of Williston. Maybe that's the program to start talking about.
We also gotta keep in mind the relationships that the city has with Williston over the years.
Right.
You know, they have done a lot,
Yes.
more than they needed to.
but that's a little bit of the marketing or education to, you know, because on the outside, it's like, you know, I think I used to see their stamp on more events, you know, sponsorship
Sponsorship.
events.
So maybe it's not as visible anymore. so
And
it
it's
has
just
to be
not as
enough.
visible, so it's sort of like, are they just sort of scaling back, or are they giving in different areas, it's just not known?
But also
So maybe
like,
we should talk with them.
I'd
Yeah.
like Paul to
Yeah.
talk.
Yeah, I have some questions actually about how this works, because I'm not super familiar, but, so in Williston, they buy some of these properties, and do they use them to, like homes, right?
Faculty.
They're using them to house faculty,
Yeah.
and is that considered compensation to the faculty member?
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Yeah, it's part of their pay.
So essentially, this is a revenue source, but they are that, you know, like as if they're renting it to the person, but they're not charging them the rent, it's part of their salary, right?
Yeah.
And they don't pay any property taxes on homes that they purchase for this purpose
They pay 0 property taxes.
at all.
Right.
So Williston is the 16th most costly private high school to attend in the nation.
School, yeah.
Really?
Yes.
Oh.
In fact, 8 of the top 16 are in Massachusetts.
No, I'm not shocked by that.
Williston number 16. At least that may not be totally correct, but that was a few years ago. They bring in $34 million a year in revenue. They claim to have held assets worth over $88 million. I don't think all of that is real estate, but even if half of that were real estate, at 44 million, and at our tax rate, I mean, that's like roughly $1 million a year in taxation that we don't have. And I don't know what they're doing as far as community
Yeah.
stuff, but, you know, and I guess it's kind of hard for me to wrap my head around, like, how can you bring in $34 million and not turn a profit when you're
Well,
educating less than 500
But
students?
just to back up,
Yeah.
the reason why this is something called the Dover Amendment, which was filed back in early 20th century. So basically, every private institution and college in the state has this situation, you know, and think about, so Williston's endowment is worth approximately $40 million or something. It happens to be on the low side of schools. Deerfield's is around $500 million. Contrast to Harvard's $47 billion, and they don't pay any property tax. Now, they have some agreements, pilots in lieu of taxes, but still, this is the climate. I don't know how it works outside the state of Massachusetts, but in Massachusetts, as far as amending the Dover Amendment or reforming it, it's not going to happen. Politically, it's just not going to happen. We have to,
What is the Dover Amendment?
basically, it says that institutions of education, nonprofit, not Porter-Chester, nonprofit, don't have to pay property taxes.
And they have other exemptions too, so
Yeah.
they're exempt from most zoning ordinances. It's a protected status that,
They can build whatever they want, no frontage, none of this stuff.
Now, they, as courtesy and good relations, they go before the planning board and they have to follow building codes.
there's very few examples of, I mean, there probably are, but there's very few examples of a city or a town that's negotiated some kind of agreement to pay some portion of tax. So I think that's where the conversation ends up going, is if there's some discussion. But if you look at Amherst, for example, so Amherst gets hit hard because UMass doesn't pay taxes, Hampshire College doesn't pay taxes, and Amherst College doesn't pay taxes. So if you're talking about a community that's hit like 3 times hard with a huge, you know, those groups have huge budgets, and then Amherst doesn't get any revenue, where we're not unique, and I think it's something that most communities have grappled with. And I think it's really, I don't know if this is the group to have a lot of discussion of it, maybe it is, but you would probably need to understand the contributions that they have made to just balance the discussion, because I think there is some letter that got put out like last year by Williston to,
Yeah, they did.
they tried to help show the things that, the things that they are doing, except pay taxes. So there is a list, and there is some value
And
to that.
25 years ago when I moved here, they were like the one bright shiny thing about the city, was that they had, a lot of employees, and everything was nice and well maintained. So it was the sort of like, Cottage Street was empty and the mills were empty, but at least this had a thriving, sort of element
Which it still
to it.
does.
Which it still does, it's just that the town is sort of built around
But
it.
it kind of, in our depths of despair, Wilson kind of helped keep a cultural base,
Right.
Yes.
but just to back up a little bit, like, in the cases of the church, the parish is struggling financially. That's one reason why they worked hard to get Notre Dame Church off on Pleasant Street off the tax rolls. They want to sell that building, so at some point in time, and Jessica, the former planner, there was some proposals before, and she was bending over backwards to they just didn't come to fruition. But I think in that case, at some point in time, within 5 years, I wouldn't be surprised to see that go on the tax rolls by itself.
Yeah.
'Cause they don't want to hold on to it any longer than they have to. Where Wilson's still acquiring.
Yes.
All right, I think we've reached the logical conclusion of this particular part of the conversation. If there's not any new business, I'd like someone to move that we adjourn.
I move to adjourn.
Second that.
Great, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, next meeting is the 20th.